Lipstick, that's my one.
I'm gonna like this thing.
Do you want to stack another chair on top of it? Sure.
This thing rolls. I might be able to roll back.
Yeah.
Might be able to bring it back a bit.
That didn't break anything, did it? Did I break anything?
Hey,
See
there
a
we
little
go.
better?
Sorta. What's up, you guys?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Women Female Creators panel. Thank you all for coming.
Do we have any children in the room?
Yeah, swearing is going to happen. That's a thing that's going to happen. Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So my name's Kenna Conklin, moderator today. I operate the website geekportland.com here in Portland, Oregon, and I will let our illustrious panelists introduce themselves. Kelly, do you want to start?
Hi, I'm supposed to use this because they're recording.
A little bit.
I'm Kelly Sue DeConnick. I write Captain Marvel and Avengers Assemble. Woo! And also the forthcoming Pretty Deadly, which you can find at pretty-deadly.com. October 23rd.
Oh God, I tried to adjust and I thought it would go really smoothly, but it didn't. I'm Leia Weathington. I'm the creator of the Legend of Bold Riley series from Northwest Press. And we've got book 2. Oh, shit. See, they clap for you, and now they're like, well, I guess.
It's really good. You should read it.
Thank you. Yeah, at K13, you can buy my book, or at the Northwest Press booth, which is, in there.
My name's Anina Bennett. I am a recovering comic book editor. There is a 12-step program. If anybody's interested, I can give you a card later. I previously worked at Dark Horse in the old version of First Comics. And as a writer, the main things that I'm known for are works that I've done with my husband, a science fiction comic book series called Heartbreakers, which debuted in Dark Horse Presents in the amazing year 1989, and is currently being reissued digitally by Monkey Brain Comics through Comixology. So you can go check it out. It's it's kind of hardcore science fiction. So if you like science fiction, you'll probably like that. And more recently, we've done 2 hardcover illustrated books, which are historical fiction with science fiction elements in them. The better-known one is probably Boilerplate, History's Mechanical Marvel, which is about a Victorian robot. And thank you. You can clap for Boilerplate. Thank you. And that one's currently in development as a feature film produced by J.J. Abrams, so keep your fingers crossed that it actually makes it into production and gets onto the screen, because that will be exciting for us.
So I think the burning question that we all want to know as successful female writers, where you succeeded where others haven't, how do you angle your body to get your boobs out of the way when you're writing? Because that's like the main hindrance, right?
I hold the pen with my vagina.
That's upper echelon stuff.
I have a separator that sort of lifts and moves them back to sort of like this region so that they're not, like rubbing. Because you get that chafe in there too, like when you lean over to type.
I write lying on my back, and that solves a lot of problems.
No, but really,
David Milch does that too. I wonder if it's because of his boobs.
But when it comes down to it, what are we doing here? Why are we having a female writers panel? Why is this still a thing? I know, Anina, we talked about how this panel has been happening for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and here we are yet again, with exotic and rare examples of the female writer.
I'll tell you why I'm here.
Well, go ahead, Kelly.
Wait. How many of you out there want to work in the comic book industry? That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here so that you can see that a woman can do it. It's been done. I am not a genius. I am far from it. I'm a hard worker. If I can do this, you can do it too. I am here for representation, so you see yourself in me, and you know that it can happen. That's why I continue to show up for these fucking things. For you, I do it for you!
Thought it was like the summer solstice, just like an ancient blood ritual you had to do, like at least once a year.
There's that too.
That was way more beautiful. I thought it was just tradition.
Well, this panel was really good. The Women in Comics panel was really common in the 90s. This is what I was talking to Kenna about on Friday. And at the time, it really was this kind of like, ooh, there are women in comics. What's it like being a woman who works in the comics industry? Have you encountered sexism? Stuff like that, And yeah, well, sure, we encounter sexism regardless of whether or not we work in the comics industry because it exists, right? There's particular ways that you tend to encounter in the comics industry. And I thought when I first got invited to do this panel, of course, I do it for the same reason that Kelly Sue and that Leia does it, partly for our own exposure, but also partly to just be like, yes, don't, like, if you're a woman and you want to do this, there's no reason for you not to do it. But the other reason is that we're still fighting the same battles. Like when I was in my 20s, I remember I was working at Dark Horse, and one of the guys somehow, like sexism in comics came up, and one of the guys asked me, so do you feel that you've been discriminated against, as a woman, because of your gender in this industry? And the time, I thought of discrimination and sexism as a much more overt and explicit thing. Like, I thought back and I was like, well, I guess I haven't been denied any jobs because of my gender. Looking back, I didn't realize I was getting paid a lot less than the men. But I didn't feel like I had really been subjected to that much sexism. But the older I get, the more I see it in so many other ways. It's in the ways that women are portrayed and certain types are drawn, and the ways the characters are portrayed in certain types of books. And now with the internet and social media, some of the bigotry that was sort of hidden and underground for a long time is starting to bubble back to the surface. And so, like every other day, we see something, we get into a conversation on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever about it, whether it's in video games or stand-up comedy or movies or comics, and it's just the same attitudes coming back, and in some cases they're more virulent than they used to be. And so I think it's more important than ever to have these conversations about it.
Well, my next question was going to be, since we've been having this conversation for so long, are the issues changing at all? Are we gaining any ground? Or is it still the same thing over and over again?
I feel, I'm still, I have one actual trade out. So I'm kind of like newer to the industry, I guess. I feel like, though, when it comes to like, in particular, male peers I have, like other creators and writers, I don't feel any sort of like boys club pushback from them. I mean, that's not the way I feel. There's the every now and then like dumb person on Twitter that wants to step to me, but that gets shut down real quick. So I don't know. I think it has, and I think it can only get better, just partially because a lot of women or anybody, any diverse person, gays, people of color, whatever, there is not kind of a like ignore it and it'll go away mentality as much anymore. I think that's changed because it used to be just ignore it. Don't even justify it with a response. And
well, I think we're getting a lot of backlash now is really what we're experiencing, and some of it's backlash from people who weren't even born 18 years ago or whatever, weren't even born when I started in comics. But one of the things that I find the most aggravating in the comics fandom community is this fake geek girl thing. It's a fake controversy, okay? And so look, some of you are nodding your heads. Maybe some of you don't know what I'm talking about. And if one of you guys wants to explain the fake geek girl thing, you can probably do it better than I can. But essentially, it boils down to the fact that all of a sudden there's a lot more female fans than there were. Well, not all of a sudden, but they're being noticed more than there were 20 years ago, and they're much more visible. And some of them are kind of casual fans of the character. Maybe they do or don't read comics, but they like the character and they want to dress up maybe. And there is a lot of backlash and resentment coming from certain segments of the male fandom towards that. And so there's this whole thing that's been whipped up about how, well, you're not really a geek, you're just a fake geek girl because you dressed up like Poison Ivy or Batgirl. You don't really care about comics.
The thing about it that's inherent that is so laughable is this whole like, yeah, they're just doing it for male attention. Yeah, dude, because you're the one that I'm totally gonna spend all this time, money, and energy to get your
you to pay
fucking
attention.
mouth-breathing ass to look at me. No, not in 100 million years.
And now I think we can all agree, like we all love nerd ass up here, but the one that throws out geek, like fake geek girl, you're not the dude. You're not the dude.
That protective, defensive mechanism of,
Yes, in a subculture that is all about accepting what's on the fringes and like in a dominant genre that is all about standing up for the little guy and being the best that you can be and protecting like all of these fantastic ideals, and you're like, no, I don't think so. You're just pretending. Like,
Well, ironically, as fandom gets more and more diverse, people some people get more and more scared. They feel like their little clubhouse that they built has been invaded, you know? And so I totally agree with you. I'm as down on it as you are, but it's coming out of you know, unfortunately, fear. But I think that we all share the attitude that...
Like I tell my kids, you know, that anytime anybody is mean to you, 99% chance it's fear. Like, don't pet an animal that doesn't know you. They will be afraid of you and they will bite you. It's always about fear. So what? Like, yes, change is scary. I'm so sorry. You know, get a Snuggie. You'll be all right. You know, like, I don't know.
I'm not trying to excuse them. Don't get me wrong. That's not an excuse, but I like to try to understand where people are coming from, is all.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. You're much more generous than I am. I am done understanding. I don't want.
I still totally
50%.
loathe their behavior,
I don't,
but I do want to know where it's coming from.
No, I completely do understand why they're doing it and why they're like that. I just don't give a fuck. I don't care about your feelings, and I'm not a great person, so I really don't fucking care about your feelings. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, I can understand a villain or a bully, but that doesn't mean that I have to take their shit.
Now, Portland has become the second largest home to comic creators in the nation, second only to New York.
Is that true?
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Largest per capita.
Yeah.
All right.
And Portland, being the cuddly, shiny, friendly place that it is, you know, I would imagine something like, Leia, you were talking about that here with your male counterparts, that you don't feel the same boys club mentality that we see on the internet, that we hear about from the publishers still in New York. And I'm wondering, do you feel a different vibe here in New York working with here in Portland working with creators, as opposed to when you go out into the world? Is Portland having a different vibe that maybe could expand, maybe? Or is your work too across the country with different people to really compare?
Well, I feel like Kelly Sue probably has a better perspective on that than I do. I actually don't do a lot of work in the comics industry right now because our last 2 books were published by book publishers. So I do comic book conventions. I'm still like connected to the industry, but I haven't actually worked for a comic book publisher for a long time.
And I'm fairly indie right now. Like, you know, Kelly Sue, you work for big 2 companies, and I honestly, I've followed you on Tumblr and things like that, and I sort of started to feel like you were the sin eater for women in our industry, where if somebody was going to pop off at the mouth with some just dumb ass bullshit, it was going to go to your email box. And it's bullshit that you're getting that, but part of me likes it because you destroy them so thoroughly that I really enjoy reading it.
Providing that service.
I know, I'm sure you're thrilled, but
the only thing is that, like, it's so weak of me. It's so weak. It's like I get such a high out of self-righteous indignation, you know, like.
But when you get it, and it's true and it's pure, you should take it.
I don't drink anymore. I haven't had a drink in like 13 years, and I don't smoke. And so I drink coffee, I swear, and I will get up on a soapbox like nobody's fucking business, you know. But I think it's large. I don't know. Let's talk.
Well, you know, Leia, probably part of what you're saying has to do with the people that you choose to surround yourself with, and the people that that you've chosen to work with, and who have chosen to work with you. So you're not going to wind up working with somebody who's one of the last bastions of the boys' club, because you're not going to get along with each other, among other reasons.
Well, I mean, and I'm a quitter. I'll quit anything. So, and I've sort of set myself up to be poor. I will say that with the major publishers, I think there's I don't know for sure, but I know there's still a strong bias against female superhero artists. And I think that they are much more likely to hire a female writer than a female artist for most of those books that Marvel and DC.
The one that really suffers is letterers. Do you know, like if you have any aspirations to letter, ladies, there's like zero. I think it's been something it's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of days since Marvel has had a female letterer on a book.
No shit.
Yeah, for
Lettering.
real.
That's
For real. For real.
and a good. That's not dismissive. A good letterer is like gold because bad lettering will sink a book.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
it
and
just
I
makes it
don't
look
think
shit.
it's. I mean, I don't think it's an overt sexist thing. I think there just don't happen to be a lot of lady letterers. I don't know, but nobody's made an effort to go out and hire them. If there are.
That's what's kind of. I think that's where when people get really angry about discussions of discrimination, is that they're like, well, I'm not like that. I'm not that guy. I'm not sexist. I'm not racist. It's not questioning whether or not you're a good person. It doesn't really have anything to do with it. It's that it's so subtle and ingrained that you don't even realize you're doing it. It's kind of like a culture of discrimination where you have to actively say, I'm gonna go look. Like there's there's a lot of women out there and they're doing great stuff. Maybe they're not getting the the exposure that they could be, so I have to go look for them. It's deliberately going out and looking.
Yeah, well, and there's the thing with the big two comics, we're on these crazy fucking deadlines, right? And so, and if I'm feeling it, my editors are feeling it twice. And so the tendency is to, like, you don't want to take a chance on anybody new, period, because you need them to deliver consistently and on time, and you need them to not be a pain in your ass. So so you want to work with people you've worked with before and you already know that to be a fact. And that's just about keeping the train moving.
Keeping the machine going. It's an
Yeah.
assembly line.
And so taking a chance on anybody new, much less going and it's that whole, like, they're going to take a chance on somebody new if you've got a recommendation from somebody they've already worked with. And so there's the networking thing, and all of this contributes to people who are not already in having a hard time getting in, and classes of people who are not already in having a hard time getting in.
Well, in every decade, there's more and more people who have professional aspirations in comics, so there's more and more competition, I think, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of that networking, kind of a historical stereotype of women is that, we all cat fight and don't get along and, sabotage each other and stuff. And I really feel there's been a significant shift in the geek culture, that with the attention to getting more female creators in the industry, that we're all willing to, put our hands out and help people step up. And has that been your experience?
I don't need to be top girl. Like, I don't want to be top girl. I'm at the point too where I'm like, I don't want 50% representation. Fuck them. Let's take 90%. Like, let's flip it entirely.
None of us grew up being like, oh, I really hope I live a lifestyle that's like the Smurfs, where I'm the only girl in the village. That would be fucking great.
And realistically, those women exist everywhere. I mean, sure, they do still exist in fandom and in the professional ranks in comics, and they exist outside of comics. I don't think the proportion is any different.
Nowhere so much as they are represented in popular culture. Like, nowhere do those women exist
it's much more
so
of a,
much
It's
as
much
in
more of a
fiction.
stereotype than it is a reality, in my experience at least. But that is because I choose not to associate with a lot of women like that. And the few I have encountered, I think, are representative of unfortunately, a lot of women who I just don't have to personally deal with. But I agree with you, it's exaggerated in popular culture.
Yeah, there was after the Who casting thing happened, there was a piece on Heidi MacDonald, who I love, who is a very bright woman who I differ with significantly on this particular issue. Wrote a thing about that was like, "See, ladies," and the piece was about how it was the reason we didn't have a female Doctor Who was because women didn't want a female Doctor Who, because women want to get with the Doctor, and as though like straight
Heidi
lady-
wrote that?
Huh?
Heidi wrote that?
Yeah.
Wow, I missed that one.
As though like straight ladies could not transfer that to a companion. Like we're not capable of that. Like, no, so there was this piece, and in it she cites this studied evidence that was like, well, such and such percentage, and I'm not going to make it up because I don't remember what it was. Such and such percentage of women have been undermined by another woman on the job, as though that proves jack. How many women have been undermined by another man on the job?
How many
People
men have been
undermine
undermined by
each
another
other,
man?
guys. It happens. Men have been undermined by men, but nobody asked that question. Nobody cited that statistic because we like this narrative that ladies fight with each other, you know? And it's like such crap. I hate it. I'm so tired of it. My girlfriends are the most important relationships in my life after my husband and my children, you know? I made a point in Captain Marvel that I was going to write about female friendships and I was going to write about intergenerational female friendships because this is not a thing that I see portrayed. And women, dudes can be in competition and dudes make each other better and dudes are like friends and they're like, oh, we're racing to the finish line and high five, man, but I'm going to kick your ass and it's all good. Ladies are like, meow, I want your boy. Like, have you ever done that, ever? No. So I wanted to see Helen and Carol fight for something they both wanted. And when Carol won, Helen's like, yeah, nail it. You know?
Well, in that time, I mean, it's truer to real life, too. I mean, because I think most of us, you know, your girlfriends are kind of your core and your center, and they stay with you for, you know, the better part of your life. I mean, the really, really important ones, like any friendship does. One of the people who I grew up with when I was in school, in high school, the only people drawing comics seriously, like they were going to pursue it for a career, all women, no dudes. And my friend Joanna Eastep, who was a senior when I was a freshman, we were writing and drawing comics all the way up until now, and now we're pitching together. She's working on my second Bold Riley book with me. She's got the biggest story. Like we were always in sort of a heavy competition with each other when we were younger, because we both wanted to be we wanted to be thought of as the best. But then as we got on and we, you know, life kicked us in the balls a whole bunch and was like, you're not that hot shit, sit down. Like as time went on, like she became a really, really sophisticated illustrator, and I got reasonably okay at writing. So it's like it kind of balanced itself out, but like, you know, my most important colleague is.
I wish when I
grew
was
up
in high school that I had known any other girls who even read comics, let alone wanted to make comics. I am thrilled to see so many women at Comic Cons now, to see so many women in the audience. I cannot tell you how much this has changed just in the last 10 years, let alone the last 20 years. And so to hear like somebody who's, you know, younger than me say that you had a friend who you did comics with in high school, that's awesome. That's exactly what we all wanted to happen when I was in high school, you know, but I didn't even know any girls I could talk to about comics. So, you know, despite that, somehow I managed to be sitting up here talking to all of you guys. And if, you know, like Kelly Sue said, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm 43. I started reading comics when I was really little, like on an Air Force base, because they're a big part of Air Force culture, and so I had them there, and then I put them down again, and then I picked them up again, and down again. That happened ad nauseum throughout my life. But
what was the first comic you remember reading? I mean, the title, do you remember?
I don't, and I always feel like such a loser that I don't, because like everybody has such great answers to that, and they were always around.
I just remember mine were Archie's because I went to the supermarket with my mom, and that was the first place I saw comics.
Yeah.
So I read Archie's and Harvey's when I was really little.
I read a lot of the DC horror anthologies in the Edmondson's basement after school, you know. But I do remember very distinctly in high school, Elaine Dove, who was older than me. She was my friend Dan Dove's older sister, and she was really pretty, and she was a dancer, and she was sort of cool, you know. And she slipped me Elektra Assassin, like she was giving me my first taste, you know. Yeah, and that was fantastic.
First one's free, kid.
That's right. That's exactly it. But you know, like I can be sort of merciless about this stuff, but I want to share with you. I had a beautifully humbling moment, an opportunity for growth, recently, because I vanity searched my shit, so I was looking for my name, and I found this thing where I read that. Somebody had written a piece about like what, you know, books that were really great for their representation of women and books that were really great for the representation of people of color and LGBT characters and so on and so forth. And I have two learning in public moments recently. So I see like my book's on there. I'm like, hey, yeah, right on. And they have really nice things to say about Captain Marvel as a book that's great for women and intergenerational friendships and so on and so forth. And then they're like, in the people of color category and LGBT characters, not so much. And like I was immediately like defensive, you know. I was like, but I, you know, the Spider-Man story and you know, all these, and I started like to myself and in my room like a crazy person, like listing off all of the characters of color that I created and how I brought Monica Rambeau in like the first chance I got to bring somebody from the outside, and all of this stuff. And then when I calmed down for a second and stopped making it about me, I thought about the opportunities that I'd missed, and I thought about like when I was creating the Banshee Squadron, which was in the opening arc of Captain Marvel. We have this squadron of World War II WASPs, women air service pilots, and when I was creating them, I considered having a black woman, and I dismissed it because black women were not actually allowed in the WASPs. There were 2 women that applied, and Jackie Cochran turned them down, and they understood. Yeah, like hell, they understood. But the thing was that like the women air service pilots were not in combat, and yet I gave them guns. They did not fight aliens on an island in the South Pacific, and yet that wasn't a problem for me. But somehow having a black woman in their ranks was you know, like that was too much.
Because that's historically inaccurate.
Yeah. And that sucked. I could do better. And then somebody recently asked me if I was going to have any LGBT characters in Captain Marvel, and my response was, you know, we may have already seen them. I don't know. I haven't asked them. Like I've made a conscious effort in the book not to deal with, and this is probably like a defensive reaction to the thing that, like, you know, well, a woman writer is going to make a high action book into like a romance comic, you know. So I decided that I was not going to deal beyond like some really top level flirting. I wasn't going to deal with any relationship stuff at all for at least the first year if we got that far, so it was like, you know, so entirely possible. I just haven't asked the characters this stuff. And then somebody responded to me, and I haven't answered them yet, but I need to. And somebody responded to me, and they were like, well, you don't really have to get into their romantic lives for us to know, you know, that somebody is an LGBT character. They could just, you know, mention an X, or it could be something about something that they're wearing, or like, you know, that you don't have to get into the storyline to provide that opportunity for representation. And it was like,
There doesn't have to be sex to address the issue of sexual preference.
yes, but it wasn't even, I wasn't saying that there had to be. I was like, I haven't dealt with like romantic life at all, but it doesn't even have to do that. You know, it doesn't have to go to I mean, it was like, yeah, you're right. And this is an embarrassing moment, what I get to learn in public, that you're right. That is an opportunity that I have missed.
What is interesting though, you're talking about doing a throwaway line and things like that. Now, my book features a lesbian lead, and I don't use the word lesbian. I don't belabor the point. It is just a facet of the character.
And it seems to be presented in a culture that at least from what I've read so far, is fairly accepting of that.
Yeah,
so it's
well,
not an issue in her culture.
Yeah, they'll play with gender and sexuality, but they're doing it in a different way. You know, it's divorced from our real world issues about it. But here's what's interesting is that Riley is going around macking on like castle servants, sleeping with farmers' wives. Her major romance at the end is with a woman. And I got a review that was like, it felt like the lesbian angle was sort of like tacked on. I think she should either play it up or drop it completely. Now, they liked the book, but you can eat my entire ass on that one, because like I'm not sure how much clearer it was supposed to be. Now, I would get it. Like if you wrote like, oh, well, my ex Sarah was just like, she was a super crazy cat lady. Like I'd go, oh, hey, But
Yeah.
for a lot of people, like you can straight up show two women like just getting it in, and some folks will be like, I don't know, are they gay? I don't know if they're gay.
Or are they just showing off for a man?
Is this a phase?
Now, talking about, Leia, you said that Kelly kind of has, her doorstep receives all of the inappropriate boys club kind of stuff, but you've mentioned that you've had to, kick some ass in your day, and Anina, you've been on this panel a million times. I'm sure when you guys started this, you just wanted to be creators. You just wanted to write comic books. You didn't necessarily want to have to be.
Yeah, I don't want to be girl writer. My
Yeah.
husband's writer. I'm girl writer. He's Hulk. I'm She-Hulk. Fuck that. I want to be Hulk.
Yeah, I don't want to be like the best female writer. I want to be the best writer, which I won at Stumptown, by the way. But that's not a big deal. We're not talking about that right now.
Yeah, my God. Thank God they don't have.
Well done. Well done.
Don't worry about it.
I won once too. Thank God they don't
I've
segregate
never
the
even
awards
heard of
by
it.
gender. Can you imagine if they actually did that like they do at the Academy
I
Awards?
would
Like
set the
best
fucking after
female
party
writer,
on
best
fire.
male writer.
On fire.
But they don't do that on the Academy Awards. They don't do writer by best male and female.
No,
only
but they
actor.
do best actress and best actor.
Yeah, they do.
Well, I mean,
Well,
like,
if
the god awful roles are. So
Otherwise,
Yeah,
women would never win
exactly.
anything, I guess, is why they do that.
Yes, exactly.
But now that you have been forced into this position and you're here, how has it affected your actual creating? Like Kelly, so you were just saying when you took Captain Marvel over, you had to think about what it meant to be in the spotlight as a female writer, and that may have changed.
No, I think it was. No, I recognized this is again learning in public. It is embarrassing to be an imperfect human being. How generous of me to model that for you. No, when I got Osborne, Evil Incarcerated, which is a book I'm still very proud of, which is unusual because usually like a few minutes after I'm done, I'm like, never mind. But I'm really proud of that book. And but when I got it, I was very proud of the fact that this is a book about a villain in prison. I was like, it's Butch, yeah. And then I had this thing where I was like, I was giving. I felt legitimized by it. I was degrading the feminine, and because this accusation happens. Like I literally had a dude say to me on Twitter, and I didn't respond to him. Alex from MTV Geek took him down, which I was like, Alex, right on, dude. Like when I got. When I got some book, I don't remember what book it was, and this guy was like, oh good, now it's all gonna be about feelings. And I was like, have you ever read a Brian Bendis comic? Because I have never in my life talked about feelings and relationships as much as Brian Bendis. And Brian is like the pinnacle selling author in the industry. He's amazing. But he, you know what I mean? Like, he's allowed to do it because he's a dude. If I do it, it's because I'm a chick. But
men have so many goddamn feelings. They just don't get socialized to deal with them.
Well, no. Brian deals with them for all of us to see.
Oh, well,
you
yeah.
know? I mean, but it was like this accusation that, like, you don't know me. You don't know anything about my... Yeah, anyway, Alex was like, yes, because Osborne was all about singing into hairbrushes, But I disliked... I disliked the pleasure that I took in doing this overtly masculine book. I found that distasteful. So I decided that I was going to be doing Captain Marvel, who in her original creation was a overtly feminist character. Like, if you think I am heavy-handed, you go back and read the early stuff when she was the female Fury. It is like, I am just as good as any guy. I mean, it is like out there in a way that we're like afraid and apologetic of now. You wait till you see my next image.
Yeah, did you guys see that contest to rebrand feminism?
Oh, no.
No. I did not. Please tell me about this right now, Anina.
I don't even know. I saw it like right before the show started, and I was like, I'm not going to start a whole like Twitter war over this.
You bring me the best candy.
It's-
What the fuck is going on?
I would have to go look it up right now to tell you who's sponsoring it, but it's some kind of like
Is it Axe body spray?
It's They're probably behind it. It's some kind of like high-end women's magazine or online magazine or something, and it's very, very slick, and it's a lot of people with titles like creatively directive person, you know, but they're serious about it. I thought it was a joke when I first saw it. It's on Bitch Magazine's website. That's where I saw it.
I'm so angry right now.
Yeah, like
Like I thought when I walked in here, I couldn't get angrier.
I'm sorry.
I knew we rolled in here like we were on our periods or some shit. We were like, fuck this up. But no.
We will be
we're
after this. When
incandescent.
we leave, we're all going to have our
Well,
periods
but
together.
let's take that head on though. So if we're rebranding feminism,
First of all, it's not a brand. Why are we talking about it this way? Second of all, people had became scared of the word, you know, at some
Yeah.
point in the 80s, I think, you know. And I have met so many women who are feminists who are scared to use that word. They always say, "Well, I'm not a feminist, but,"
And say
you know?
something incredibly feminist. It's like,
Right,
bitch,
which
you're
is
on the team.
which is why somebody thinks they can get away with this, you know, contest to rebrand feminism. Oh, let's face it, it's outlived its usefulness, hasn't it, ladies? You know?
No!
Yeah, the fact that you're doing this proves that it has not.
I like it when men tell me feminism is dead. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, no, you sister, you know what you're talking about.
And that we don't need it anymore.
You're on the fucking ball.
It's about fairness, guys.
fairness for 50%? I don't know. That seems outrageous.
Yeah. Tell
Aiming
me
too
something
high.
good, because I'm gonna kill somebody.
Hey, look how many women are here.
We have a splash zone. That's
This is the biggest panel that I've done, and I've done like 4 this weekend.
Hey,
So-
no, that's huge. That's great.
yeah.
That's
I
really
mean, like
fantastic.
we filled this room out.
Yeah.
And when I started doing them, like I wouldn't, because I you know I started getting into comics, and then it's kind of like you start out doing the fucking women in comics panel. Like that was always it was queers in comics or women in comics. I got one of those two, which are like two of the most reasonably boring aspects of my personality. But it used to be it was probably like you know max 10 women, but now it's a room full of dudes and ladies, and hey.
Yeah, when I go to San Diego Comic-Con now, there are lines in the women's room. The women's room used to be like a ghost town. You'd go in there, there'd be like 1 other, 2 other ladies in there. Now there's lines. That's awesome. It's exciting.
Hold the phone. If we rebrand feminism, will I not have to wait that long to use the bathroom in San Diego?
Now she's thinking about it.
I'm willing to go Benedict Arnold on this.
We got 15 minutes left. Should we
Well,
take some? Oh, I'm
well,
sorry.
we started a little late, so
Oh,
we've got a
oh,
little
okay.
extra time.
All right.
So I did want to make you feel a little better before we start, you know, sicking you on question. No, you're gonna be very nice to the questioners, but if we want to
Well.
come out of, assuming you all play nice, but if we want to end on a positive spin and a productive spin for the women here who want to get into comics, who want to come to conventions and dress awesomely and be supportive, can we talk about a little bit how to find support, how to respond to the negativity, and kind of how you're surviving and how to stay positive?
I don't know if I stay positive, but I can tell you this. I can tell you that with I am a white, straight, cisgendered woman. I come to this with a certain amount of privilege, and I can make an effort to improve my own habits in who I portray and what I do. But the most progressive thing I can do is to help people who are not like me get into a position to tell their stories and to tell the stories that speak to them and talk about things that are important to them. And I really believe that the purpose of fiction is to create connection. It's to make us feel as readers like we are not alone in this experience of the world. It is to make us feel community, to make us feel human. And I think that the best thing that I can do, I'm gonna tell my stories because I love to do it and I can't stop. But the most progressive thing that I can do, the best legacy I can leave this industry, is to help other people, men and women, and people whose experiences of life are different than mine, to get in a position to tell their stories. So what you can do to help me help you is to get your ass ready. And that means you have to start making comics and stop making excuses. And that is really, really hard because, as we established earlier, change is scary. Art is also scary. Whatever idea you have in your head, when you get it on the page, it will suck. Welcome to my world. But you can't get to your second draft until you've got your first. You can't write your second book until you've written your first. The only way through the only way out of the woods is through. So you have to do this. You have to make art that is not good before you make art that is good. And if you tell me that you're a writer and you can't find an artist, so you can't do this stuff, then I will give you a list of exercises that you can do all by yourself in your room with a piece of paper and a pencil to start working. I get
But
letters.
if you don't necessarily want to make comics, you have a different art form. Maybe
Yeah,
you
yeah,
like
totally.
to cook, and then you just love reading comics, or watching movies based on comics. Then that's cool too. Pursue your art form, whatever it is, and pursue your passion for comics in your own way.
Yes, absolutely.
And find other people who like the same things you do. And if somebody's a dick to you, frankly, you don't have to be a dick back. There are ways to defend yourself or to ignore it without escalating the conflict. I was trying to, when I was trying to talk about why I think some people are reacting in this very fearful way and we're having this backlash, the reason I think about that kind of stuff and that I try to talk about it in public is because I think we have absolutely no hope of changing that behavior ever unless we try to understand it. And you cannot necessarily change it instantly, but if I don't even try to understand where it's coming from and talk about that in public, it's never, ever, ever gonna change. And it is changing slowly. So that's why I try to look at things like that from the inside out. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it helps me to understand, helps me deal with it to understand where it's coming from.
It's dealing with it. It's knowing how to approach that person and their whiny bullshit.
And, also, if you're walking around in a costume at a convention and any guy ever touches you without your permission, they do not have permission to do that. That is totally not cool. And and hopefully your friends who are with you will step up to the plate. But feel free to just turn around and yell at them, "Do not touch me."
Yeah, lose your shit over it. Because here's the thing: there's certain behaviors. You don't have to be polite. Like, some folks kind of get coddled on their behavior. Fuck them. Like, somebody is probably going to give you a lot of crap, especially if you're a woman, about what you've chosen to do. And they're going to think that they immediately know better than you, whether or not they work in comics or not. There were some lovely, lovely letters that I read to Kelly that were, it's like, what the fuck did you do for comics? But it's not right and it's not fair, but it's going to happen, and get just really, really comfortable with the words fuck you. Because sometimes there's no argument, there's no debate. It's just fuck you and we're done. Like, don't waste your time on that kind of nonsense.
Delete.
Yeah.
Delete.
Yeah, or leave me alone.
Like, dogs bark at the moon all the time. Like,
The extension of that is that there are some really incredible, wonderful, and particularly if you live here in Portland, amazing, amazing, amazing comic book stores that are very welcome to people of all varieties. Do not patronize comic book stores that do not make you feel comfortable. If they do not want your business, don't give it to them. We love the direct market, but we don't. Like that there are too many other ways to experience comics for you to give your money to I want them to go out of business.
That also has changed for the better massively. I mean, there are still bad examples out there, but in general, the stores are so much better than they were 10 or 20 years ago.
There are nowhere near the number of the sort of stereotypical
basement,
store. And I've
leaky
lost
pipes.
count of really astonishing, fantastic stores.
Bridge City Comics, Tifa, Floating World, Cosmic Monkey, all those.
Yeah, I've not seen a bad one in Portland. Portland is like the nirvana of.
It is kind of paradise up here.
Yeah, that's
Well,
cool.
Also, I think a lot of the bad ones just died in the last recession, essentially.
Yeah, I've only been here for 4 years, so I think I'm.
No, I mean
probably
like
missed them.
nationwide.
Yeah, that's true.
And as the layman of the group, if I can jump in, those of you who shop comics, the more you're in the comic book stores, when other women come to the comic book stores, they're going to see you and feel more comfortable. So that's another way you're supporting other women and enjoying comics.
Yeah,
You're
that
also
is
helping
fair.
to educate the people who work in the store by what you buy, because if they're paying attention to what you buy, and they might recommend something else, based on that to you. And then if somebody else is reading the book that you like, they might recommend something else that you were buying. So you're really helping to educate the people who work there about the diversity of taste and opinion that's out there.
So we do have a mic here in the middle. If people have questions, feel free to jump up, or we'll just keep these ladies going either way.
You know women, they just talk.
Can't shut us up.
Hi.
Hi, on your topic of cosplay is not consent, there is a wonderful bumper that was made for Dragon Con by some of my friends, and if any convention wants to use it, contact them on their YouTube and they will give you, for free use, the high-res version for share. So
Sweet.
it's a lovely
Awesome.
little PSA of, if you're dressed up, that doesn't mean someone gets to take a picture, doesn't mean someone gets to touch you. But I came into comics kind of through science fiction, and so I don't know a lot about the field. And I feel kind of overwhelmed going to a comic shop and going, hey, what should I read? So for somebody who doesn't want to deal with like decades of previous story that they don't understand, can you make a recommendation?
All my books. What are you interested in?
My experience with comic culture is through like the X-Men animated series and Batman, so I like superheroes.
What do you like to read in science fiction?
Yeah, because you mentioned science fiction.
I like Gaiman and Asimov and Heinlein. Like, I did the classical science fiction education as a child.
Nice.
You
about-
read like all the same books I did. Well, I am going to say you probably would like Heartbreakers because it's science fiction and I grew up reading all that stuff. But I mean, the best thing I can tell you is to go to like find a comic book store that you're comfortable with. Go in and talk to them about what you like in other media, you know, and tell them like just go in and say like what science fiction books are good these days, you know, like Saga is
Saga's very good.
sort of science fantasy, but
Prophet
Saga's excellent.
too. Brandon Graham's Prophet with Simon Roy. That's an excellent one if you want sci-fi.
Did you have a suggestion?
I just wanted to throw out the way I got into comics as a relatively new comics reader is basically I took things like a character that I knew I liked from, say, a movie, and I looked up, just Googled best blank stories or blank rec list. And I turned up some amazing things that way. And from there, you can just sort of run with it.
Get on Tumblr. Yeah, no, I'm not even kidding. Like,
Send things to people on Tumblr, they will be happy to give you recs lists.
yeah.
I love when people ask me to recommend things.
Yeah, and also all my books.
And also, Kelly, so how about another question?
Mine's more of a comment insofar as talking about safe spaces in comic book shops. There was something that was started online by a long-time, he writes fan fiction and regular fiction, Sam Starbuck, called Hater Free Wednesdays. And what it is
I'm
a
sorry, what's it called?
Hater Free Wednesdays. And what it is a site that got started that keeps track of people's recommendations for safe comic book stores or spaces that are not as safe. So they have it by state within the US and then by country. So if you're not from Portland, which is that kind of nirvana of cool comic book stories, you can find one around you that people have said is a safe space for women of color specifically, for people who identify as queer. It's a way so you don't have to feel afraid of going to a comic book store if you're not sure. And so I just thought I'd throw that out there so people would know.
No,
Thank you.
thank you for
That's
sharing
great.
that,
Thank
and
you.
thank you also to the young lady who shared the information about the Dragon Con cosplay is not consent trailer. PSA.
I'm just curious, when you were talking about buying stuff at comic book stores and then the staff being able to recommend things. Kelly Sue, you made a face about that, and I'm curious what your take.
Oh,
on that
I was squinting because I was afraid that we were going to all ladies love fables, which is I got scared there. If I got nervous, I was like, oh no, where are we going? And we totally didn't go there, and I should have trusted.
You forgot who were on the panel.
I know. But yeah, it's I get comic book really well-meaning, super nice retailers will be like, oh no, we love women in our store, and we have lots of women shoppers, and I always give whenever a lady comes in, and even if she's with her boyfriend, I always recommend fables. Ladies love fables.
It's highly variable. It totally depends on the staff of the store you're in. But there are women who work at these stores too. Like Bridge City and Things from Another World. They all have women working at them. But the best kind of store is going to ask you. They're going to ask you, what do you like? And when you ask them, what should I read, they're going to ask you, what do you like? And then it's like Amazon. If you like this, you might like this,
Well, it's like, what genre do you like? I mean, genre can cover anything from prose books, comic books, movies, TV, They're not. It's not like there's comic book as a genre. That's bullshit.
No, it's a medium.
That's what's hurting our industry.
It's a medium,
I think.
not a genre.
Yeah, it's a medium, not a genre.
So we're down to 5 minutes, so we're going to try and buzz through just these
All right.
questions here, so let's get it.
That's a question. Well, first of all, I read Heartbreaker, and I really love it.
Thank you.
And I'm drawn to more women in comic book than the other side. And I think, for one thing, I'm 80% deaf. And so one of the things that the female character really touched upon me is that they have to try twice as hard to be treated as an equal. And that's what most of the women that I see in the character are really good at what they're doing. And that's why I pick up on it. The other thing, too, I did touch a woman today. It's a really bad habit that I have to get people to lip read, so I tend to tag them, so I got a lip-to-lip conversation. And sometimes that gets misconstrued as a sexual harassment, And that's one thing I love about Switch at Birth. They're really opening up a lot about what the deaf community and the misconception that they have. So my question to you is that in order to be more in touch with the female and think like a female, what exercise would you recommend for someone who's writing a female character? And then in your experience, what is your weakness as writing a character that you struggle with?
I have
That was
no
a lot.
weaknesses. I have none. No weaknesses.
That is a really hard question. I don't know if I have any useful advice for how to get inside the head of a woman. I mean, I've written male characters, and I just write them like they're people. They just think and feel differently than I do, and some of the women I write think and feel differently than I do. But I think partly because of what you guys were saying earlier about how men are socialized to, for the most part, to not just kind of suppress their feelings and not deal with them as actively as women do. I suspect I'm making a broad generalization, it's easier for women to get inside the head of a male character than vice versa. But you're already halfway there if you're thinking about things like, oftentimes women or, ethnic minorities have to try twice as hard to be accepted, like half as much, basically. So just write them like they're a person.
And I mean, talk to everybody and read everything. Just keep listening, and you'll form your own opinions. But I mean, you're getting everybody else's viewpoint at the same time.
I have a request, though. Would you write more deaf character in your...
I actually have something that I don't know when I'll have the time to really work on it. The majority of the characters in the story are deaf. It's a science fiction story, so.
You might pick up Hawkeye, too. Hawkeye? You might pick up Hawkeye.
Sorry, a really quick comment about writing different genders. One thing you can try is write it as a male character and then change the pronouns and see how your experience with that changes. I read an interesting article that somebody wrote where they were writing a story and the female character came off as really bitchy to one of their editors. And she said, all right, now go through and change the gender of this character, or make it Harry Dresden, and read it again and see how you feel about it. And everything that was bitchy and awful as a female character was totally acceptable once you change the gender. And so when you make that distinction, to be able to say this character, there's nothing wrong with the way they're behaving. This is a perception of socialization that's messing with how I feel about these behaviors.
That's great. And please continue these conversations after this panel, because obviously our audience has a lot of great experience and knowledge to share too. Let's get these last two, try and get two as fast as possible.
I'll try to do
and
this
then
quickly.
we'll
I
release
have
the room.
2 stepdaughters, and my eldest stepdaughter, Grace, is a sophomore in high school. She currently reads every single book in the feminist studies section of her high school library.
I love her.
And she goes to private high school in San Francisco, so that's not an insubstantial amount of stuff.
Wow.
And she reads Captain Marvel. And
I love her even more.
she and my youngest stepdaughter, my wife, are going to be at Geek Girl Con, and they want to meet all of you guys.
Fantastic.
But Grace particularly said to me when she read Captain Marvel #1, she had 8 or 10 comments, and one of her favorite ones that kind of stuck with me is that she really dug the way that Steve Rogers was on Carol's side. And I wondered if you guys think about, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I guess just talk a little bit maybe about the differences between writing male characters who are very clearly asswipes and don't get it and are good examples of how horrible men can be versus not just strong female characters, but male characters who respect and understand strong female characters, and how those are also good examples, the way Steve was in Captain Marvel 1.
I love Carol and Steve together so much. Yeah.
I think it's the same thing. We just write them like they're people, you know. There are good people and bad people of all genders, you know. And I the one thing that I try not to do is I try not to write any particular character as an exemplar of, you know, the understanding male, you know, because then they're not going to come off like a person. Then they're still just a stereotype. They're a cardboard. So I'm just trying to write them like people and explore their attitudes and why they have those attitudes and how it affects their interactions with other people. You know, like in all of the books that I've written, there are very strong female characters. Heartbreakers is about 2 groups of female clones, so it's like dozens of female lead characters. And in the most recent book that I did with my husband, the main character is actually an imperialist dick, basically, who's taken from 19th century dime novels. And the point of view character in that book is his daughter, because we needed somebody more sympathetic, and B, I wanted a woman in there. But I tried to write that guy, that, you know, this sort of, you know, imperialist adventurer, sympathetically from inside his own head. Like, there's a lot of excerpts from his personal papers, and you get to see what his idea of himself is. So I'm not trying to present him as a cardboard cutout of a male imperialist. He's a person who has his own ideas about what he's doing. It's just that his ideas don't jive with our view of them, you know?
Yeah, you always want your villains to be somebody that, like, if you squint, you can sort of see where they're coming from.
Every villain is the hero of their own story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and nobody likes to think they're a bad person. You know, nobody.
They
likes,
are, but they don't.
No, everybody's got that shred of total dickhead in them, and it's like a daily battle not to let that dickhead come out. But you know.
All right, last question, then we'll.
So I've always really, really liked X-Men since I was a little kid, partially because they had so many amazing female characters.
Me too.
And I kind of fell out of reading X-Men for several years and just picked up the first issue of the new storyline where they're all chicks. Mm-hmm. And so I've been freaking out at all my friends about it, and because I'm friends with a lot of smartasses, they keep asking me, well, if they're all women, why are they called the X-Men? And I really don't know how to answer that question, because they've always had great female characters, but they've always been called the X-Men, so I was just wondering.
Because it's a brand.
Well, yeah, yes, but Brian Wood, who's the author of that book, has actually addressed that overtly. If you Google for Brian Wood's response to that, if you can't find it, I'll find a link to it for you. But he felt that would marginalize them. And I believe, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but Brian doesn't like that suggestion at all. And I kind of, I don't know.
Well, you gotta trick people sometimes. You picked it up and oh shit, it's all women, but it's really good.
But, you know,
so
no,
maybe I should buy more of this stuff. That's why I don't put the word lesbian right on the cover.
I mean, Brian probably has a really good argument, but the business answer to that question is that X-Men is a trademark, and Marvel makes bank off of it, and so they want to keep the name X-Men. Is my guess. Right.
So we do need to wrap, but thank you so much to our panelists.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank all of you for coming out and being wonderful. And keep the conversation going.
Oh, nice. Thank you. And I am at booth 1013, conveniently located near the women's room. And Leia, you are?
I am over at K13. My book, The Legend of Bold Riley, is for sale. Also, if you want to hear me say a lot of the same shit I just said, I will be in the room next door for the Diversity in Comics panel.
Yeah, and I'm heading over to panel room 2 for the Dark Horse Superheroes thing, and then I'll be back at my table, which is either G1 or G2 at 4 o'clock.
And they're also all on Twitter.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes. KellySue.tumblr.com or
I do have fun.
3D.